from our studio in Ingolstadt, the Audi Annual Media Conference.
Live from our studio in Ingolstadt, the Annual Media Conference of Audi AG.
Hello and herzlich willkommen.
Hello and welcome to the Annual Media Conference of Audi AG for 2022. We are very happy to have you here with us. Finally, I could say. We have to apologize for the technical hiccup, for the delay. The hiccup caused because of technical problems in our live stream. So thank you very much for waiting and welcome. Now, this is something that you, well, of course, have to expect when you have a live broadcast, that there could be a delay. But we stay true to the digital format, coming with our broadcast again from Ingolstadt, because your feedback was quite clear. It's so much more convenient, saves a lot of time, and nevertheless you get all of the relevant information in this way. So, what can you expect in the next approximately 60 minutes? I don't think I'm, well, exaggerating when I say a lot happened in 2022 in geopolitical dimensions in the whole world and also at Audi. We are working intensively to implement our strategy Vorsprung 2030, and we are gradually converting our plans to electric mobility. We are training, reskilling, upskilling our staff, especially in the digital area. We are building up new skills. And this is exactly what we would like to talk about today with our CEO, Markus Duesmann, and our CFO, Jürgen Rittersberger. And naturally, I mean, it's the annual media conference. We are going to give you a detailed picture of our group's key financials. And additionally, we would like to show you what's coming next for Audi. What are our goals for the year 2023? And what is our current status and progress with electric mobility? So you can see there's a lot that we can discuss today. Our agenda is packed, and after that, in our studio, Markus Duesmann and Jürgen Rittersberger will be available for your questions. And you are, of course, welcome to submit your questions during our broadcast. Please go to the microsite and submit your questions. So let's get started now.
Hallo Markus, hallo Jürgen.
Hello Markus, hello Jürgen.
Gleich mal ein, eine kleine Verzögerung noch aufzuholen.
Well, we have to catch up for the little time lost during the delay. So Markus, your own personal review, your summary of the year 22. Let's start with this. Yes, I'm happy to do that. Now, the year 2022 is certainly a year that most of us will definitely remember for a long time. It will be one for the books, not least because of the war of aggression Russia launched against Ukraine a bit over a year ago. I vividly remember last year's annual media conference. At that time, the war had just started, and, well, nevertheless, after 1 year, 1 year ago, it was at the forefront of our mind, but after 1 year, the war really is still leaving its impact on us. Here in Germany, we have energy shortages, supply bottlenecks, rising prices, and a challenging geopolitical situation in which Europe hasn't quite found its role yet. Now, in view of this complex and uncertain environment, we can really be proud of what we achieved last year. And this was only possible thanks to a lot of hard work and a great team at Audi, great teamwork. We made the most of the year, and we further pursued the execution and implementation of our strategy and made a lot of progress here. We'll come back to that in a moment. Now, Markus, let's make it more specific. What will Audi take with us going forward from the past few months? What is the key takeaway? Now, first of all, our workforce's great solidarity with the people of Ukraine. They went above and beyond to launch numerous aid campaigns and collected donations. And second, we increased our attractiveness as an employer. Specifically, we created a hybrid work agreement that prioritizes employee and team ownership of their tasks. Offering this kind of flexibility will help us recruit new talent for Audi, for instance, in computer sciences and in software development. And third, our future-oriented product portfolio. Last year, we came up with an updated roadmap for the electronics architecture in our group, and that means we have created clarity in planning reliability for all group brands. And on this basis, we have now assigned or reorganized the allocation of vehicle concept on our platforms. And for Audi, the result is an attractive, competitive and manageable portfolio. But that's a portfolio we will only see in a couple of years. It's coming up in the future, but we already have a very attractive portfolio now, particularly when you look at all electric models. If you look at the sales figures for 22, this is definitely a confirmation that it's an attractive portfolio. Now, absolutely, sales of all electric models increased by 44% year-on-year versus 21. The great demand for our models, Q4 e-tron, e-tron GT and Audi e-tron models confirms that we are on the right track towards electric mobility. And at the beginning of this year, we also see that this trend is continuing. From January to February, almost 40% more all-electric vehicles were delivered than in the year before. And this, although in some markets such as Germany, the government subsidies for electric cars have expired. In February, we also had the launch of the Q8 e-tron in most European countries. They started this launch, and we have almost 20,000 advance orders, and this is a really successful start for our all-electric flagship. Jürgen, we talked about sales figures already, and particularly for the Q8. Let's take a closer look at the markets and regions. Yes, I'm happy to do that. Now, the premium brand group delivered in 22 a total of 1.64 million cars of the Audi, Bentley and Lamborghini brands. And that's about 3% less, down 3% year-on-year. In Europe, in spite of the difficult supply situation, we recorded incremental growth. All in all, we delivered around 632,000 vehicles, 1.9% more than in 21. Now, what was really positive was Germany, the development in Germany. In our home market, we delivered 19.2% more units than in the year before. The Netherlands, Austria, Spain and Italy, as well as 6 other Western European markets, recorded increases in deliveries for the financial year. In the United States, the total number of vehicles delivered at around 194,000 was slightly down year-on-year. What cost us volumes here, above all in the first 6 months of 22, were first and foremost the logistics and supply bottlenecks. But we really made up for that quite nicely in the second half of the year, and demand continues to be high. In January and February of 23, the Audi brand set a new delivery record in the United States. China has been one of our key markets for a long time now, for many years. And the supply situation there was critical as well, particularly for semiconductors. Add to that the local COVID lockdowns in the first half of 22 and production interruptions such as at the Changchun site in March and in April led to a sharp drop in local production of almost 70%. And the world's largest container hub, Shanghai, was also affected. The lockdown led to significant disruptions. And all across the country, showrooms and dealerships were closed for weeks. It was not possible to sell vehicles. And then, in the second half of the year, we caught up on volumes. For the overall business year, the brand group delivered a total of 647 vehicles in China, and that's 7.8% less than in the previous year. Thank you for all those details and the differentiated picture you have drawn. Next, let's take a closer look at the key financials. Jürgen.
The key financial figures for 2022.
Financials for 22.
Around 1.6 million deliveries.
About 1.6 million units delivered, minus 3%.
61.8 billion euros revenue,
plus 16.4%. 7.6 billion euros operating profit, plus 37%.
The operating margin increases to 12.2%. Net cash flow, 4.8 billion euros, the second best ever.
Jetzt sind wir soweit, Jürgen, mit den Zahlen.
So, Jürgen, now the figures. We are very happy to report an excellent result for 22 for you, in spite of the major challenges. The war in Ukraine, rising energy and commodity prices, and high inflation dampened the economic environment. On top of this, there were the familiar challenges from the previous year, the supply situation for semiconductors, fragile supply chains, and COVID lockdowns in China. We responded to all these consistently by taking active countermeasures. We adapted our production swiftly and flexibly, and we successfully improved our price positioning in key markets, and we also optimized our fixed costs. Thanks to these measures, and above all the great cohesion, dedication and hard work of our entire workforce, today, for 22, we can now announce a strong financial performance. At 61.8 billion euros, our sales revenues were up 16.4% year-on-year, despite a decline in deliveries due to supply shortages. This can be attributed, firstly, to the price positioning I just mentioned. And further positive factors were the first-time consolidation of Bentley in the 22 financial year and the strong performance of Lamborghini and Ducati. Our original parts business and our all-electric models also contributed disproportionately to this growth. The share of revenues from the sale of electric and hybrid vehicles, according to the EU taxonomy, increased to 13.5%. Our operating profit stood at 7.6 billion euros. And this is well above the previous record level set in the year before, in 21. Operating return on sales reached a strong 12.2%. This record result is attributable above all to the following effects. Our strong market performance was by far the single most important earnings driver in the financial year 22. In addition to an improved price positioning and the favorable residual value development in the used car market, I would also like to highlight the excellent original parts business. And we are also particularly pleased with the outstanding performance of Lamborghini, Bentley, and of course also Ducati. Moreover, we benefited to the tune of 0.8 billion euros from positive effects of commodity hedging. So we benefited from these effects in 22. To give you some context, raw material prices, especially for nickel, soared last year. On the other hand, i.e. as a negative impact on our earnings, we had higher energy and raw material prices. They had the opposite effect, negative impact on our product costs. Plus, there were special items in connection with the diesel crisis, and they had a negative effect of 71 million euros on our bottom line. Now, before these special items, our operating return on sales for the financial year 22 comes to 12.3%. If we include the China business, which accounts for around 1.2 billion euros of the financial results, our operating margin would be as high as 14.1%. Which shows that we have navigated the turbulent year of 22 well, and we consistently made the most of opportunities. And the same goes for the net cash flow. A strong 4.8 billion euros makes this the second highest level in our company's history. The reason we are back to a more normal range compared to the exceptionally high previous year is increased inventories to ensure our ability to deliver, as well as disrupted logistics and supply chains. Other reasons included higher tax payments, investments in our new factory in China, and changes in shareholdings, including, for example, the first-time equity contribution to Audi Formula Racing GmbH and the spin-off of sales companies within the Volkswagen Group. Our research and development expense ratio amounted to 7.3%, slightly above the strategic target range of 6 to 7%. And this was due in particular to the first-time consolidation of Bentley and higher upfront expenditures for the transformation, especially for electrification and digitalization. Our capex ratio reached 4.2% compared with 3.8% in the previous year. And this increase is primarily due to investments in the construction of our new plant in China.
Die Kapitalrendite übertraf mit
At 22.2%, return on investment exceeded the strategic target of 21%. And that's it from me at this point. About the financials, 22 was an impressive demonstration of just how robust and profitable our brand group really is.
Well, Markus, let me just ask straight away. That sounds really good all around. Record-breaking results, record-breaking return, and of course a CFO that is beaming ear to ear. So what would you say is the secret behind these good results despite the difficult times? Well, I would say it's less of a secret and really a lot more a ton of hard work and a great deal of focus on what's important. Jürgen has just mentioned the numerous challenges already, and to make sure that we are in a viable position going forward in such a difficult and challenging environment, we will also be adapting our organizational structure. By consolidating key topics such as ESG, digitalization, and new business models in the CEO's division, we are lending them even greater weight. Also, a new corporate structure with clearly defined responsibilities and processes, as well as simplified committee landscape, allow us to prioritize more effectively and make decisions more quickly. Jürgen has also just mentioned the brand group. Audi, Bentley, Ducati, and Lamborghini are 4 strong brands in and of themselves already. But as you can truly see very impressively in the numbers, then all the brands benefit from the collaboration. In 2022, we completely revised our collaboration model, and this move is truly paying off. What our brands, and thus also the brand group, of course, can do through the autonomy given by the VW Group and the CEO, Oliver Blume, and therefore take on more entrepreneurial responsibility, well, in my view, that's the absolutely right step to take. We will strive to step up our sustainability and realize synergies throughout. And we now have the freedom we need within the group to pursue this. Among the brands, of course, Audi is the pioneer in the transition to e-mobility, and this experience is available for the other brands to benefit from. Furthermore, there are joint projects in production and sales. And just one specific example. All the way back in 2019, we launched a pilot project with dealerships to sell Ducati motorcycles and Audi cars under one roof. This pilot project has been going on extremely successfully, and that's why it's being expanded. By 2024, 100 outlets worldwide are to become what we call combined dealerships. It's a clear win-win. Motorcycle sales are up, Audi is attracting new customers, and well, we've already moved on to the Ducati motorcycles. Jürgen, I think we could probably talk about that for a while, but because you've already talked about the brand group, how did Bentley, Lamborghini, and Ducati perform on an individual basis? Well, let me start with Bentley. I think the numbers speak for themselves. Bentley has been consolidated in our brand group since January 1st, 2022. The traditional British brand stands for bespoke luxury, perfect craftsmanship, and powerful performance. And with the Beyond 100 strategy, Bentley gives an even stronger focus on sustainability. In 2022, the brand delivered 15,174 luxury vehicles worldwide, exceeding the previous record by 4%. Revenue grew to 3.4 billion euros. Operating profit amounted to an impressive 708 million euros, corresponding to a return on sales of 20.9%. The record results for fiscal 2022 serve both as an aspiration and as an incentive. In the long run, Bentley is targeting an operating margin of over 20%. Moving on to Lamborghini. Lamborghini also had a very successful 2022. 9,233 vehicles delivered record revenues of 2.4 billion euros and earnings of 614 million euros. These are all around new all-time highs. The same is true of the return on sales. At 25.9%, Lamborghini is the benchmark in the super luxury sports segment. Orders received at this point will keep Lamborghini busy well into the year 2024. And with its Direzione Cortauri strategy, Lamborghini is paving the way for an electric future. The brand aims to generate a sustainable margin of more than 25% in the long run. 2022 also marked a year of great success for Ducati, both on and off the racetrack. Now, I myself am a passionate biker and enthusiastic Ducatista, as you can see, and I was very impressed by the best MotoGP and Superbike season ever, including Riders' World Championship, Constructors and Team titles. Super impressive. But the brand also gives me great joy in my role as CFO. Despite the difficult supply situation, Ducati posted a new delivery record of 61,562 motorcycles in 2022. Sales revenues amount to 1.1 billion euros, exceeding the magic mark of 1 billion euros for the very first time in the brand's history. The operating returns on sales hit 10%, and that's of course also the strategic target for the brand. Now, Jürgen, we've intensively talked about 2022 now. What can we expect for this year? Well, also for 2023, I must say, we have set ambitious goals, a lot to achieve here. However, the general conditions will remain quite challenging. The overall economic situation remains quite demanding, even though some growth forecasts have been revised slightly, very slightly upward recently. But that doesn't mean we can rule out a recession during the year, just yet. And the challenges of 2022 will, of course, remain with us as well. For 2022, we've aimed to deliver between 1.8 and 1.9 million vehicles of the brand group. Based on this volume, we expect sales revenues of between 69 and 72 billion euros. Our anticipated operating return on sales should be in the range of 9 to 11%. Our current target for the return on invest is between 19 and 22%. As for the net cash flow, well, we aim to achieve a strong performance of between 4.5 and 5.5 billion euros. All these KPIs are based on the assumption that the supply situation will remain stable and that we will continue to assert our strong price positioning in the market. Right, great. Markus, Jürgen was just saying that it remains challenging. But I do believe that we have set the right track with our Vorsprung 2030 strategy, right? Well, absolutely. We believe that by deciding to phase out internal combustion engines already back in summer 2021, we've created clarity. Now, over the next decade, we will see more and more bans on the new registration for cars with internal combustion engines across many regions. But at Audi, we are gearing up to make that switch over the course of 2026. From that moment on, we will only be launching new E-models on the global market. We will phase out production of the last combustion engines for the global market by 2033. Right, so as it's being discussed a lot in the European Union, it's something that we've actually preempted. Is that right? Well, absolutely, that's right. With our early decision to set a specific phase-out date, it's given us the time we need to manage the change systematically and make sure that our employees are on board with it. The EU's proposal is ambitious, and therefore it is important that we now focus squarely on the expansion of the charging infrastructure, the availability of raw materials, and the increased use of renewable energies. We see this as a joint task for business and policymakers. Now, that being said, we see a risk in the current political debate that the EU regulation for 2030 to 2035 is called into question again. And I must say, we need reliable planning as soon as possible to make sure that we can tackle these challenges on a technological basis and achieve our goals. Right. Now, defossilization or decarbonization of the economy can only be achieved in a collaborative effort. That's quite clear, I believe. But what role specifically do you see for policymakers and what role for companies? Well, in recent months, there have been repeated discussions about the great attractiveness of Germany and Europe as business locations. And it must be stated in no uncertain terms that, among other things, the electricity costs for companies are simply too high by international standards. This development has further exacerbated by the energy crisis. We are committed to our German sites, but at the same time, we need solutions to reduce electricity prices from policymakers. Such a move would send a powerful message and fundamentally improve the appeal of the German region. The second factor crucial to the transformation of our industry is the raw materials for modern battery cells. It is essential to secure a long-term and sustainable supply at competitive prices. The Volkswagen Group is closely looking into the question of how to diversify and secure raw material supply chains in the long term. Political support for this issue is very welcome. But snap decisions along the lines of no more raw materials in China are not going to help us. It takes time to diversify supply chains and develop new sources of raw materials. It simply does. Which is why we need interim solutions to broaden procurement and supply chains in the global raw materials markets. Right. Thank you very much for this detailed glimpse in our financial performance, but also the strategy. Now, before we dive deeper into... Oh, let me find the camera. Here it is. Hello, thank you. Today it's really working perfectly. But before we delve deeper into issues of sustainability, let's watch a clip for our video, What Drives Us?
Vorsprung 2030. Our global transformation plan. With the backing of more than 80,000 employees worldwide. How do we change? Which solutions do we have? What are our answers to future challenges? Technological progress. This is the core of Audi. This is how we are shaping the future of sustainable premium mobility. Our Sphere concept cars provide an outlook on this. Fully electric, fully digital, and fully automated. And the next big step is straight ahead. From 2026, we will develop exclusively all-electric models. Our premium platform electric plays a special role in this. A global range of electrically powered Audi models will be based on it, an important boost for our transformation. The first production model will be the Audi Q6 e-tron. Coming soon. E-mobility for the first time, directly from the headquarters. We have ambitious goals. Together, as a team, with strong group partners. With ESG at the heart of everything we do. With circular economy strategies and closed material loops. With technological innovations that move us and our customers forward. And with the courage to take on new challenges. The best way to predict the future is to create it. A future that really makes sense. For our customers, for our climate and nature, and for our generations to come. This is what we stand for. Today and tomorrow.
Und damit sind wir wieder zurück.
Now, and with this we come back here to Ingolstadt. Markus, you outlined the transition to e-mobility by 2033. Now, let's take a step back from there and look at the next few years. How will things proceed specifically? In late 2023, we are going to launch the most comprehensive product initiative in the history of Audi. And by 2025, we will have launched around 20 new models, more than 10 of these all electric. In 2024 alone, we will release more than 10 new models and product upgrades. In 2024, the same year, we will also launch the new premium platform combustion, or PPC for short, for the last generation of our conventional powertrain model series. These include the successors to our high-volume Audi A4 and A6 models from Neckarsulm, which will be contributing to the success of our company for many years to come. In the long term, however, the road is clearly heading toward 100% electric. By 2027, we seek to offer an all-electric vehicle in each core segment in our portfolio. According to the current product planning, we will then have a lineup of over 20 electric models. So within the next 5 years, we will be significantly expanding our e-portfolio. As part of these efforts, we recently decided to launch an additional electric entry-level model below the Audi Q4 e-tron as well. Sustainability. We are demonstrating it also with our transition to 100% all-electric mobility, just one way. And our new platform, which was designed specifically for electric vehicles, the PPE, Premium Platform Electric, will play a key role in this. As the first car based on the PPE to debut later in the year will be the Audi Q6. And that's a car that we can all look forward to, isn't it? Particularly here, Markus. You bet, especially right here in Ingolstadt, because the Q6 e-tron is the first e-model made in Ingolstadt. And this makes Ingolstadt the first German Audi location, and after Brussels, the second in the Audi group to have its own battery assembly plant. The last test runs are currently underway, and by the second half of the year, we will be ready to show the model without its camouflage wrap. The PPE platform is the next major step for us, defining technologies in terms of performance, range, charging, and driving dynamics. In the next few years, on this basis, we will get a global range of electrically powered Audi models that we will create over the next few years. And we will also localize the platform in China, for example, with our new e-car production in Changchun, starting next year. And beyond the product, certainly beyond the product, as part of this strategy, we are also heavily involved in ESG, environmental sustainability, social responsibility, and corporate governance. That's right. ESG is a cornerstone of our corporate strategy, and already today it's firmly embedded in our company's organizational structure. To make sure that this holistic alignment with ESG is ensured, or to make sure that we have it, we will be fully aligned with ESG criteria, and I will in the future oversee the strategy and management of sustainability in my own, the CEO division. And as I said, we are certainly very much aware of our responsibility in dealing with resources. And that's why the circular economy plays such an important role for us. And this comprises the entire life cycle of a car, from the materials used in production to the vehicle's efficient drive system, all the way to the recycling of the raw materials. Our stated goal is to steadily increase the share of secondary materials in the Audi fleet over the next few years. And with Material Loop, we have launched a circular economy project. Together with 15 partners from our suppliers base, recycling companies and academic partners, we strive to close more and more material loops. For this project, 100 cars were taken apart at the Audi Assembly Center. What will be the next steps? Yeah, that's right. This was only the first step, and the goal is clear. We would like to recycle as many materials as possible for return to series production in order to close loops, to save primary materials, and also at the same time to avoid downcycling. Now, Material Loop is just one of many examples. With our investment plan that we adopted earlier this year, we are underpinning our ambition to lead the way in innovation, and we drive our transformation into a provider of sustainable and connected premium mobility. We are ready to pull our weight, to make our contribution. We will not delay planned investments, even in these economically very challenging times. Investments. Okay, that's something I would like to ask Jürgen about. Which kinds of investments are coming up for the next few years? Now, in the next 5 years, we will be investing a total of 43 billion euros approximately. And of these 28 billion euros, approximately two-thirds will be invested in electrification and digitalization. Because we are firmly convinced that the electrification of our fleet is the best step to decarbonize individual mobility, the best way to decarbonize it. And we're looking at the entire value chain, all the way from the raw materials through the production of our vehicles, the phase of usage, and to recycling of our vehicles. All of this is considered. But ESG goes definitely beyond decarbonization and the product itself. We are absolutely convinced that commercial success and social responsibility are really closely linked with each other. And to quote Markus, this is why ESG is now firmly embedded in our company, and ESG criteria are taken into account in our decision-making. And this is why we also have our performance measured by independent rating agencies based on objective criteria, and that's our benchmark then. And we want to really continue to develop and become even better in this respect. Now, the famous last question for you, Markus. So, to sum up, what is your summary? What are the main points? Can you recap the main points? Right, we are now entering the second stage of transformation, in which many things are happening at the same time. The ramp-up of electric mobility and the development of our last, and as I see it, most attractive and best combustion engine vehicles. So all the more reason for us to focus and pick up the pace. And this is why last year and over the past few months we have taken important decisions, and we have really repositioned Audi for the future. We are on the verge of the biggest product initiative in our history, and this is why I and we as a team on the board of management, we are very confident, very optimistic.
Danke, Markus.
Thank you, Markus. Thank you, Jürgen. So now it's time for the last part of this event, as I announced before, the Q&A session. If you have not submitted a question yet, please do so via the question box on the microsites, and we'll be back in a few moments.
Und da sind wir auch schon wieder.
And we're back.
Und wollen uns jetzt Ihren Fragen
Now we would like to face your questions, and for that, of course, I would need my tablet, otherwise it's going to be tricky. Thank you very much.
Orientiere ich mich kurz und wir starten.
Let me just get my bearings.
Ja.
And we'll start with Michael Haberland's question. Mobil in Deutschland. Thank you very much for your question. Is Audi going to this is talking about the one-sided mobility strategy. Are you going to change this and move back to your slogan, Vorsprung durch Technik, so technology openness? Are you going to return to that? Markus. Well, mid-2021, we made a clear commitment to electromobility and the phase-out until 2033. Until then, of course, we're still building internal combustion engine vehicles. The best and most beautiful internal combustion engine vehicles are still coming, of course, with the SOPs in the coming year. But e-mobility is becoming more and more important. And it's important for us to be clear, because only in this way can we bundle our capacities. Only in this way can we bring our employees on board. Only in this way can we make sure that we have a successful future. Right, next question. This is by Li Fushang, China Daily. Thank you very much for your question. How do you evaluate Audi's opportunities in the Chinese NEV, so the new energy vehicle market? We already talked about this in a roundtable a few moments ago. Markus, I think the question goes to you as well. Right, well, China is, of course, an extremely important market for us. We've been there for over 30 years, and
bei Verbrennern sind wir heute sehr, sehr gut
For internal combustion engines, we are doing really, really well. And the market also has a huge potential for batteries and NEVs. The Chinese electrification is, of course, rapidly gaining speed, especially also in the premium segment. In 2022, we started with 2 new NEV models. In 2024, our PPE production is going to start there in our own plant in Changzhou. And that's why we are incredibly optimistic to make sure that with the new models that we're about to launch to the market, as well as the future models, that we will be able to defend our position in the market. Right. Then a question, very up to date. Of course, this is current events in the United States on the banking crisis. Bill Boston is asking, hello Bill, great to have you here. This is Bill Boston from the Wall Street Journal. Multiple questions actually on the banking crisis. So in how far does that affect us? Jürgen.
Gut, wir sind unmittelbar
Well, of course, we're not immediately affected by this. The Silicon Valley banking situation doesn't affect us. We don't have any sort of investments or savings. It's a specialty bank, especially for tech companies. But still, of course, the crash has caused some noise in the stock markets. We are also not thinking that the stability of the financial system is currently at risk, and I believe the experts believe the same thing, as we do. Thank you. Then a question on Thomas Magenheim-Hörmann, R&D Deutschland. Thank you very much for your questions. The question is, what do you think about the internal combustion end in the EU in 2035? That's, of course, something that we've also discussed intensively in the last few weeks. Right, well, Audi in 2033 has positioned itself very clearly on this topic. I think what's especially important with this discussion is that we have clarity for the industry, clarity where we can invest, but also clarity for our customers, because of course it's a large investment for our customers, and so our customers need to be clear in terms of which technology they can invest in. And with the strategy that we've developed, we can transform the company. The time frame is enough, but I do believe that it is crucial that there is clarity in these EU regulations, as I've mentioned. Thank you very much. Then, moving on to the next question. This is also a current topic, the EU 7 norm and standard. The question is, the automotive industry believes that the planned EU 7 standard is not something that they can implement. What does Audi think?
Well,
we are of the firm opinion that we need an adjustment of the current proposal. We have spent a lot of time and money in the development in e-vehicles, and of course have to put a lot of capacities in the development as well. And I think an especially hard regulation regarding EU7 will draw capacity, will draw additional investments, and of course the higher prices that can be expected by EU7 is also something that, the fleet renewal, simply due to these higher thresholds, is something that is really going to be putting a damper on things. And that's why we would like to see a correction of the current plan to switch all vehicles to EU7 mid-2025. That time frame is simply not enough. If that rule only comes into effect in 2024, we just need more time. Right. Thank you. Then a question by Evangelos Kiosis. I hope that we pronounced all these names correctly, by the way. He is from Alter Ego Media. Now, how does the electrification strategy of the brand match its significant investments in Formula One? Which benefits do you think you can derive from the Formula One investments? Well, from our point of view, this is a perfect match because Audi and the Formula One both follow very ambitious sustainability goals. And the precondition for us getting into the Formula One was that the rules develop more towards sustainability, and that means that starting in 2026, the electric share in Formula One cars is going to be significantly higher, and that the combustion engine will be operated with e-fuels. Formula One, of course, is a platform to drive development. This is definitely going to happen with e-fuels because all the large mineral oil manufacturers are jumping on that bandwagon. It's happening with electrification because Formula One, they of course require incredibly high energy density, and that's why it's really going to push electrification and e-fuels further into the future. So again, a great fit for us because with Formula One you can really achieve touch points with very, very young customer groups, huge sales markets around the globe, and we're really bringing in touch lots of people with our brand. Thank you very much. Moving on to a question from Lennart Wermke from the Automobilwoche. Thank you very much for your question because I'm guessing it will come up a couple of times. Mr. Duesmann, you have mentioned an electric entry-level model under the Q4 e-tron. Which platform will it use? Which software is it going to be using? And of course, when should it come into the market? I believe our competitors will also be intensively interested in this. Well, let me just emphasize, this is actually just an additional model, right? But you will have to be patient. Just let yourself be surprised. We're going to communicate it as and when. Right, the next question. Let's jump to China. Mr. Gu Yen, car profit in China. Hello from our side, by the way. He's asking, at the moment, lots of technology companies are jumping into the automotive industry, which is tightening the competitive environment. What does Audi think of this current situation? How will Audi continue to keep a competitive edge?
Dass so viele in Automobilproduktion und Entwicklung investieren,
that so many companies invest in the manufacturing and development of cars clearly shows the automotive industry is highly attractive. And of course, we have nothing but the highest amount of respect of all the new competition. But I believe we are in a good composition. We have over 100 years of experience in production, in the service network. We have very faithful customers. We have a lot of great strengths, design, quality, safety. We have set up a ton of competence also in CARIAD, and that's why I also believe we're going to be doing well in China going forward. Right, moving to Belgium, Jan Nagels by the Nagel News Agency. He's asking, Jürgen, what do you expect? Sorry, not what do you expect. He's asking, do you expect additional production stops in the Brussels plant due to our continuing supply chain issue? Well, of course, at the moment, we are still feeling the post-corona effects, the post-corona hangover, if you will. We're still feeling the supply chain issues in the semiconductor industry. The global economy is still not fully up to snuff just yet, but the parts supply has become better. It's still a little bit volatile, but we do see a positive trend. At the moment, we don't see any sort of production downtime reasons, and that's why, as far as it works, we're simply going to continue operations in the Brussels plant like normal. And let's jump to the next question straight away by Thomas Magenheim. Let's see. He's asking about the CO2 value that the Audi fleet had in the EU in 2022. So this is, of course, the respective rule area.
Die Audi AG hat 2022 die CO2-Flottenziele in der Europäischen Union, Island.
Audi in the European Union, Norway and Iceland, based on preliminary numbers, actually achieved these numbers. And with around about 121 grams per kilometer, Audi actually overperformed or outperformed the 125 grams per kilometer that are outlined in law.
Gut, dann springen wir an einen anderen Standort von uns.
Right, so let's jump to a new site. Christopher Hallrauf from the Heilbronner Stimme. Mr. Duesmann, when will you be using the new naming convention? I'm thinking it's about the numbers, the odds and evens. Even numbers for electric vehicles, odd numbers for combustion engine or plug-in hybrids. Are you going to change this? What's your feedback? Well, of course, we are currently expanding our product portfolio by additional series with an e-drive, and that's why we are currently restructuring our naming conventions. So even numbers represent a BEV, uneven numbers represent an internal combustion engine or a PHEV. The start of the renaming has already kicked off. We changed the name of the e-tron to the Q8 e-tron. The next model will then be the respective Q6 e-tron.
Dann Ein Thema, Wachstumserwartungen in Indien.
Right, now Shruti Mishra is asking from Autocar Professional how you see the growth potential in India and how the company wants to keep the leadership or take on the leadership when it comes to switching to electromobility in India. Jürgen, India is of course a very strong market, a very interesting market in the past few years. We are quite happy with 4,000 deliveries in the last year. That's, of course, a significant growth compared to the previous year, plus 27%. We are now also starting with the Q3 shippings and the Q3 Sportsback. For 2023, this should give us additional impulses, and also our electric portfolio is going to be expanded, starting with the Q8 e-tron.
Danke dir. Dann springen wir nochmal nach Griechenland zurück.
And let's jump back to Greece.
Markus, welche Pläne hat Audi für E-Fuels? Ein Thema, was ja...
What plans does Audi have for e-fuels? Of course, also something that people are intensively discussing outside of the rules and regulations for 2035. Well, as Audi, we have a clear strategy for 100% BEV that we selected. We're doing this, of course, for efficiency reasons, because with a BEV, there is an efficiency that is significantly outperforming e-fuels. But of course, e-fuels have a role, they will play a role, they are important for us as a society, because it's the only way to make the existing fleet better. But other sectors, like for example airplanes, boats, or long-haul traffic, they're going to need e-fuel because there simply is no other technology to make these sectors CO2 neutral. All right, thank you very much. Jürgen, a question to you. A question which we basically already had just a moment ago. How is it possible that Audi, in times of multiple crises that are quite varied, how is it possible that Audi makes a profit? Well, we have different reasons we can give you. First off, of course, we've utilized the positive market situation. So with our price positioning, we were able to really utilize the seller market, but we've also optimized our fixed cost. And also the very strong genuine parts business has contributed to making sure that we got this record-breaking earnings. And of course, those are particularly strong in our brands, Bugatti, Ducati, and Lamborghini. They also contributed, but we also had some specialty effects, especially from the commodities and raw materials business. But even without these special effects, we would have really gotten a great result. So if we were to deduct that, we're still clearly within our strategic target range of 90–11%.
Gut. Damit zu der Frage von
Question by Carlos Drake or Drake, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, it's from Spain. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. What happens if the Audi A1 will come to the end of its life, when it will no longer be produced? Will the successor be produced in Martorell in Spain, where we are producing the A8 today? And in the near future, will there be another Audi coming from Spanish production? Markus? Now, the A1 is certainly a great car. It's wonderful. It's a car that many of our customers are still delighted and enthusiastic about, and it is in the middle of its life cycle. It's a highly attractive model. We haven't planned a direct successor to it because we have to tighten our model range. We have to make it leaner. We are clearly positioning ourselves as an all-electric premium brand. And by 2027, in all the segments where we would like to operate, we are going to offer BEV models. And for Martorell, currently we have not taken any decision yet if and which Audi model will be built there in future. Thank you. Then Jürgen, a question, a follow-up question concerning your outlook for the year 23. Full order books, but what comes after this? Question mark. Now, we started very well into the year 23. In particular in Europe, we had a good start to the year, and in Germany and the United States. And we are basically operating at the same level as last year. In Europe, it was 16% increase. In Europe, 16%, Germany, 15%. In the United States, the first 2 months were excellent. Here we had new record deliveries at plus 41%. In China, well, the start in January was not so easy, also because of the Chinese New Year, but in February, we are now back to a very sound level. Compared to the previous year, we grew by 4%. So all in all, our outlook for the future is very positive. And for 23, I'm really confident, particularly since great new models are coming up. As we mentioned before, the Audi Q8 e-tron, it's a great car. And in the second half of the year, we will present the Q6 e-tron. So looking to the next few months, we have a great product portfolio, many new launches, and also beyond 23, I'm sure it's going to give us a lot of tailwind. Thank you. A question from Larry Cat from Automotive News from the United States. And this relates to the example which you mentioned before, Markus, Ducati. But it's a question for Jürgen. Now, these combined dealerships, will we also have them in the US market, and if so, how? Now, first of all, this combination of Audi and Ducati under the same roof, I believe it's an excellent situation because it's a win-win situation for both brands. On the one hand, Ducati can close the white spots on the map, and on the other hand, new customers will be attracted to the dealerships, and Ducati customers might become interested in an Audi. And in particular, Ducati is now focusing on closing those white spots on the map. The first dealers were in South America, in Brazil, and in China. And now Ducati is represented with this in 96 countries. In the United States itself, I believe Ducati already has a very strong footprint. So if we are going to analyze very carefully whether additional combined dealerships will be necessary, but the focus is really on closing white spots on the map where we have markets where Ducati is not really represented yet today. Then a question which actually sums up many questions, and that's a follow-up question from Larry once again. What are the effects of the Inflation Reduction Act from the United States? How does it affect your future production plans at Audi? Is it going to mean that Audi will also build an assembly plant in North America? We got this question many times over, but since Larry was the first one, or he asked the question before, we are going to respond to this follow-up question now. Markus, now our business, Audi's business, is based upon three strong pillars. Of course, Europe, EU, China, and North America. And the United States is an extremely important market for us. We had record deliveries in January and February of this year in the United States, a very important market. And of course, we also considered to expand capacities, but a decision has not been taken yet. And IRA, now you cannot ignore it as a company, and it has to be a wake-up call. And the European Union, the EU, also has to find an answer to this, but it must be a non-protectionist answer. But we are really closely observing and analyzing the market. It seems to be a very positive development there, so the decision will be taken this year. Thank you. Then a topic which I believe is high on the agenda in many companies and has been discussed intensively in the media in the last weeks. Now, many companies are saying the employees should return to the offices, back from the home office to the office at the company. Why doesn't Audi do that? Now, actually, our motto is we trust in our people, they have to assume responsibility, and they should be as flexible as possible, our employees. So the focus should be a good balance of being in the office on site and being at home and collaborate by means of a digital format. So balance between home office and working in the office. So the team makes its own rules. They have to align on the mode of working, so it's a lot of responsibility delegated to the individual and the team. They have to decide how they want to strike this balance between home office and on-site. And since the tasks in such a big company are so different, it doesn't make a lot of sense to establish the same rules for everyone. So we need to be flexible, and that's what we created, this flexibility. Then another question. We go to our second German side, a question by Alexander Dambach from the Südwestrundfunk. Now, utilization of capacity. The plant in Neckarsulm, what kind of utilization of capacity should we expect in the next 2 years? When will the decision be taken for the future models to be built in Neckarsulm? And for the plant in Neckarsulm, will there be an electric successor to the A8?
Markus.
Markus.
Now, in the next few years, first of all, the new generation of our extremely important successful models A4 and A6 will come to Neckarsulm, and that means they will have excellent plant capacity utilization. We already have an E-model there. It's the e-tron GT. It's built in Neckarsulm, and for each and every one of our sites, we have a clear electrification strategy, and naturally, the end date of 2033, by 2033, all of our sites will be clearly transitioned to electrification. And in Neckarsulm, we are already establishing or building an HV development center for batteries. So construction work is already underway. Right, another question from Jan Nagels. Let's go to our other site in Brussels. Now, new models, are they planned for production in Brussels? Any new models planned for Brussels? Question mark? And that's a question for you, Markus. We only just had the very successful start of the Q8 e-tron. So we successfully launched the Q8 e-tron production in December 22, and as of the second half of 23, there will also be Q4 e-tron models built there in addition. Now, Brussels is a very attractive site. Well, in terms of CO2 neutrality, it's a pioneer when it comes to BEV manufacturing, and we are currently discussing how we would use this capacity in the following years. Then the question on geopolitics. Now, what is your response to the geopolitical shifts, protectionism, the decoupling, the differences between the United States and China? So what about Audi's position here, Audi's take? Markus. Now, as a matter of principle, we think that free and fair trade is very important. But of course, the geopolitical situation for our company is getting more and more complex. And this is why it's so important to have a good equilibrium or balance of the three pillars, the European Union, North America, and China. And we are now preparing regional strategies for China and North America. That's what we are working on, and it will be finalized soon. So we would like to diversify our supply chains on the various continents to have a more robust position, but also with circular economy, we want to be in a more robust position. Thank you. Then we go back once again to India. Onendra Singh's question is, your talks about localization of electric vehicles and the assembly in India. What progress have you made in these talks? Jürgen, could you answer this? You also referred to the regions and markets before. Could you discuss the question about, or respond to the question from India? Now, at the moment, in Aurangabad, we produce the A4, A6, Q5, and Q7. So this is how we are represented in the network of group companies. And within the group, we are also discussing how local production, including BEV models, could be further developed there in India. But local production of electric vehicles requires a certain volume. And this is a volume which we cannot reach as Audi on our own. So it's something that where we can only find a solution as a part of the whole group. The e-tron series and e-tron GT are available in India, and the Q8 will follow soon.
Ich sehe langsam an der Zeit die wahrscheinlich vorletzte Frage.
This is possibly our penultimate question. Just two more. Now, Jan Nagels. This is a topic which is often discussed, the lack of skilled labor. Concrete question, how many open jobs or vacancies are there in Brussels, and is it difficult for you to find the right people to recruit the skilled labor you need there? As Markus said, the production of the Q8 e-tron has only just started, and in the second half of the year, the assembly of the Q4 e-tron will also start. So we need skilled labor, skilled workforce. And of course, in Brussels, we also have problems with the lack of skilled labor. It's a major challenge for us, also for coming years. We try to take countermeasures by being an attractive brand and offering attractive work conditions. And I'm confident that our brand will find a way, and we will find the necessary workforce also for Brussels. And of course, this also means qualification or training Since we started with e-mobility in Brussels, we had more than 1 million hours of training with our employees in Brussels. Then, the last question. This is for you, Markus. So what insights did you gain from the material loop, which you mentioned before? And what further insights do you hope to achieve with this project, with the material loop project? Right, cars, well, more than 90% of a car consists of steel, aluminium, glass and plastic materials. And our objective is, of course, to recover these raw materials for production so that the raw material can be used for the production of new cars, so that we can feed it back into the material loop. And steel has a secondary share, or steel from secondary sources was used for 15,000 door inner parts of the A4, and we are also preparing guidelines on how we have to design plastic parts, so design guidelines so that it's easier to recycle these plastic parts, and further projects will follow. Thank you. So this was the annual media conference in the year 23 for the past year. Markus and Jürgen, thank you. Thank you very much. And I would also like to thank all of you for submitting your questions, for joining us here. And this broadcast will also be available shortly as a recording in the Audi Media Center. There you can replay it. And you will also find all of the financial information there. The texts and graphs and similar information will be available there in the Media Center. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. See you soon. Take care.